First story. OP's son was on his deathbed, and they are saying their last goodbyes. Narcissistic Mel, who couldn't give an SHT, jokingly asks the nurse, did they ever treat murders while playing games on her iPad with loud noises? OP lost it. Note: there are 2 original posts, but the updates apply to both. Mil's side of the issue. I was told to cross-post here, as it is a more appropriate sub for my story. I needed to tell my story, get an unbiased opinion, and just vent and get it off my chest. Using a throwaway account, details are very private, so I wish to remain anonymous. Warning: this is long, as I am a very detailed person. This is just one issue in a very hard year, as there is much more. To start off, I guess my son is dead. My little boy was 13 months old. Pillar of health. We cherished and looked after that boy with all we had. He was perfect on Tuesday and died on Wednesday, and he passed 7 days later. This is a whole other story in and of itself. I got along well enough with my in-laws. My mother-in-law acts very immature and erratic. My wife told her mom she used to be an alcoholic. As I got more confident in my relationship with my wife, I told her, I think your mom might have alcoholic brain damage. Where I need help is this. My son needed emergency surgery as his brain, for unexplained reasons, was swelling. They had to remove part of his skull to allow for the expansion. My parents arrived within an hour of my call. My in-laws, whom this post is about, arrived much later, even though they live 30 minutes closer. My in-laws left as quickly as they arrived. My parents, however, stayed. They slept on waiting room coffee tables, waiting to hear if our little boy would live. He made it through that first surgery, only to pass away the day after Mother's Day. My parents never left our side, even though they had brought no clothes or supplies. My in-laws, on the other hand, did not reappear until it was time to say goodbye. My mother-in-law arrived in pajama shorts and a t-shirt that was too small to hide her girth. She began to ask the nurse if they had ever treated any murders. As we took our time saying our goodbyes, she noisily played games on her iPad. The nurses arranged it so we could take him outside one last time, even though he was on life support. You see, our son rarely cried, but whenever he did, we simply took him outside. It cheered him up instantly. Being outdoors was his favorite place in the world. My wife went first and held him one last time beneath the stars to say goodbye. Before I even had my turn, my mother-in-law asked us to hurry up. I was furious. I told her, in the calmest voice I could muster, leave. I meant for her to go home. She took it as permission to go inside. She stopped to clarify, and I just said, go. We brought my son back inside, and they disconnected him from the machines that kept him alive. It was the hardest thing ever. I have been diagnosed with depression, severe anxiety, and PTSD, and I am on antidepressants as a result. While we were waiting for him to pass on, he slowly turned gray, and my mother-in-law decided to clean up his hospital room. The problem with that is that, as you know, she wasn't there, so the stuff she was throwing out was our paperwork from the social worker for grief support, etc. My mom stopped her from throwing it out, while I yelled at her to stop. All the while, my father-in-law and sister-in-law sat there doing nothing with annoyed looks. When he was finally gone, my wife had to wait for the nurses to remove him from her arms, which was quite difficult as he was limp. My mother-in-law left immediately. When my wife got up, she asked, crying, "Where is my mom? I need a hug." We did not see or speak to my in-laws for 2 days. We couldn't bear the hurt on top of the grief. I decided to clear the air and invited just my father-in-law for lunch. He arrived, made idle chit-chat, and then got up to leave. I said, "What about lunch?" He said he needed to get home. We told him to wait. We needed to discuss something. We described how hurt we were by my mother-in-law's behavior, and he said she just didn't cope well. We said we would do our best to understand, but while we are sorting out our feelings, please ask her not to disturb us. And if she is struggling, she has the option not to come to our son's visitation. We would understand. His response was, "Well, I guess I'll go home and kill myself." I have no clue what he said to my mother-in-law. Next thing we know, she calls and says, "I hear you are upset with me. Too effing bad. I won't be at the visitation." Click. I was furious. I feel like I have just failed as a father. I am not going to fail as a husband. I immediately called her back and gave her a new one. Her response was, "I am not going to talk to you if you are going to use that language." I said, "F you. You don't get to swear at my grieving wife and then claim some kind of moral high ground." She hung up on me. She immediately called my wife, who has said and done nothing at this point. She calls my wife a effing bee and hangs up. She begins to call us every 2 seconds. Then she starts sending threatening texts that she will harm us. I called my father-in-law and told him to get things under control, or I was calling the police. He begged me not to call the cops and took away her phone. The calls stopped. We did not receive any support from my wife's family. They did not attend any events prior to his visitation. My father-in-law showed up late to my son's visitation in a cargo shirt and an old golf shirt. A few days passed. I call my wife's aunt, whom I have gotten to know a little, as they are not close family. I asked her for some perspective on my mother-in-law. She said they fell out over 20 years ago. The aunt had apparently canceled a sleepover between my wife and her cousin. The cousin didn't want to go anymore. My mother-in-law told the aunt, "I hope you die." She then drove over to their home, knocked on the aunt's door, and told her again face to face, "I hope you die." Apparently, my wife's family disappeared for 3 years. The extended family had no idea where they were. Then we spoke to my wife's grandmother. She told us that my mother-in-law was diagnosed as bipolar years ago and has a history of violent behavior, including smashing the grandmother in a car door repeatedly. The grandmother reiterates that they lost track of my wife and in-law's whereabouts for 3 years. She feared that she would be violent toward my wife. My wife broke into tears, saying that her mother had beaten her repeatedly in her drunken stupors. Now we have a clearer picture. My mother-in-law is mentally ill. My father-in-law knew this and hid it from his children. He knew how unstable his wife was and still brought her to the hospital. He completely mismanaged the situation by keeping everyone in the dark. My wife asked him very respectfully for a break in communication advice from her therapist, as she needed to heal and her family was hurting more than helping. It's been a few months, and we finally heard from him again. I have copied and pasted his email below. I hope you are doing well. You are always in my thoughts. I'm writing this email because we really need your help with Mom. She has been in the psychiatric ward in the hospital twice, once for 6 days and then for over 2 weeks. The root of this problem was her reaction to your son's passing and how her reaction to this was treated. As her therapist says, everybody reacts to death differently, and no two people grieve the same. I think it would be healthier if you two could get past this and start a healing process. At the present, your mother is sliding back into her very depressed state, brought on by 2 things: the absence of your son and the absence of her eldest daughter. She said this to her therapist at her latest session. I'm sure Mom misses you and thinks of you often, but she is nervous to reach out to you as you may not be ready for this. Mom's therapist is very concerned with your mom's mental state, so I think a phone call or setting up a visit just you to see if you two can reconnect at some level, even if it's meeting at a coffee shop or at Mom's therapist office, whatever you are both comfortable with. It may or may not work, but I see this as a viable option given what's going on now. So, mull this over, and please let me know if getting together is a possibility. We would really like it to be. Love, Dad. In her response, my wife told him everything we had learned and pointed out how he had failed as a father, including this email, which was void of fatherly concern for her well-being. She did offer to meet with her mother-in-law's therapist if it would help. His response was, "Sorry to have disappointed you. Have a nice life." I was furious with this email. Not only did he not care about my wife's mental state, he did not try to re-establish communications first before making an ask. My wife has made the decision that she is done with her parents. I have supported her decision, as they have been toxic to our recovery. Edit. Removed some personal identifying details from the Phil email. Thanks for everyone's support. You've had me in tears, but in a good way. Sister's side of the issue. I posted earlier today and was directed to this sub as well as JUSTNOMIL. I cross-posted there if you are interested. I won't post again here, but I wanted to share something about my sister. My sister is 4 years older than me. We were somewhat close, as my parents just had the 2 of us. My sister always bossed me around, but around 12 years old, I realized she was not a kind person. My sister had screwed me over for years. I would help her constantly, even to my own detriment, because, in my mind, that's what families do. But she would never help me when I needed her. The few times she would agree to help, she pulled out at the last minute. I could give you years of backstory, but I will skip ahead to the final straws. 4 years ago, my wife and I were buying our first home. My brother-in-law owned his own truck for his business. My sister offered it up to help us move as my brother-in-law was quite sick, lung issues, and couldn't help with the actual lifting, etc. This was to be their contribution. 2 days before moving day, she calls me to say she doesn't want to put wear and tear on the truck. I am stressed beyond belief and furious that she is pulling this crap on me again. However, I keep my cool. She swears up and down that they cannot help, that my brother-in-law is too, and that his nurse will become one on moving day. She offers to pay for the moving truck if I can manage to book one. Great. I book the truck and call her back. She yells at me and tells me it needs to be booked under her card so she can write it off. Fine, whatever. She gives me the card number and then says, Well, what? I reply. Aren't you going to ask me to help you move? She says in my head, I am going, WTF. She just spent months telling me they couldn't help including this conversation. I reply no. She loses it again and accuses me of just using her for her money. I've had enough at this point, and I reply, You know what? If you think that little of me, the truck is already booked on my credit card. I'm good. I hung up and did not speak to her for 2 years. What brought me back into the fold was that my bill was dying. I decided that, as shy as she was, everyone deserves family. I reached out and asked her if she needed anything. She asked me to visit her husband in the hospital. So I did. I visited him once a week until he was transferred further away. And then I started phoning him. He died waiting for a lung transplant. My mom called me with the news. I said I'd be at my sister's place right away. My mom said, You might not be welcome there. I said it didn't matter. Family is family. If she throws me out, so be it. I have to try to be there for her and her kids. We never reconciled. We just pretended nothing was wrong. I rejoined family events in an effort to give them a sense of family. My son was born about 6 months later. It became harder to be there for her as I struggled to find my footing as a new dad with a stressful new job. But I made sure I was there for the hard days. My sister made little effort to be in my son's life. I was confused by it because she was so looking forward to his birth as a source of light in her life. She would make regular trips to my town and get drunk at the bar literally around the corner from my house. But she wouldn't pop in. I found out that she had started sleeping around. I'm no slut shamer, and with Bill being sick for so long, I'm sure she needed it. So I encouraged her at first. Then she slept with my mom's boss. It was starting to get out of hand. My nephew quit hockey because he was getting bullied in the locker room. We were all stunned, as he loved hockey and was so personable. We later found out that my sister had slept with one of the hockey dads. A married one. Next, we found out she had a falling out with her best friend. She would only tell us that she was a BTCH. We found out from my best friend that they fought over my sister's new boyfriend. She didn't like him. He was a drug dealer. We have family in law enforcement, so we had him looked up. Sure enough, he had been charged as recently as 2016. Off on a technicality. He also had a suspended license, but she was driving her car around with her kids in it. Things were very tense between the family and her. Then my son died. She made an effort when he was in the hospital, but she was gone. She blew off his celebration of life with no explanation or contact. I mustered my strength to attend her son's 8th grade graduation the following week. She refused to sit with us or even speak to us. I stopped talking to her after that. She texted me last month, saying she was giving me space, her spin on ignoring. I told her she had let me down, and she was dismissive. I told her off and blocked her number. I'm done with her for good this time. It turns out she was pregnant with a drug dealer's baby. She named it after her dead husband. I joke with my therapist. My life has become some Jerry Springer SHT. I texted my nephew when I thought it was safe to do so. She often takes his phone and reads it. Sometimes he even texts back, pretending to be him. I told him I loved him, and that even though I was out of his mom's life, I was not out of his. I would have his back if he ever needed it, and my door was always open. I have a feeling he will need it. I heard from my mom that he told my sister to F off last week. Please don't think my nephew is disrespectful. He is an upstanding young man and attends Christian school. He has suffered so much, and he has had enough of her. As have we all. Update 1. It's been a while. I thought I would share some new and previously unshared information. Since my last post, we have not heard from my wife's family. The Have a Nice Life email we received was our last contact. We spent Christmas with my wife's aunt. She asked if we wanted any information about them. We declined. We don't care. They are out of our lives. I cross-posted this update already to JUSTNOMIL. Even though we haven't heard from my mill. We struggle daily with our loss. We struggle with zero support as my parents are away. Things felt so bad last year. Unemployment wouldn't cover me. During my bereavement leave, I was fired. I was on contract, so there were no laws protecting me. I attempted to take my own life twice. I felt I had failed as a father and again as a man. I have finally seen a psychiatrist, and I am now on antidepressants. I started with a new grief counselor this week, and I have started to look for a new job, as I finally feel able to do so. My wife gave birth recently to a baby girl. I now have a daughter. A small piece of me was repaired. It feels bittersweet to be a dad again. We told very few people about the pregnancy. Maybe 10 people tops. Anything could go wrong during a pregnancy. We did not want to have to face the world if we potentially lost another child. I later came to realize that the people we trusted enough to tell us were the same people who came to the house to check on us. It's difficult to hide a pregnancy if people physically see your wife get larger. I mention all this because my sister chose to stop talking to us. So naturally, she did not know about the pregnancy. The day my daughter was born, I told my nephew about it. I love him too much to make him feel alienated. I guess he told his mom, and she was furious. I have no idea why. Other than that, she is a narcissist who hates not being the center of attention. She called and berated my parents. Meanwhile, her drug dealer boyfriend texted me, telling me how shy I and my parents are. I responded by texting, "My son is dead. My daughter was just born. Is this the man you want to be today?" He called me a retard. I told him to stay classy and blocked his number. I should mention that my sister and her drug dealer boyfriend also had a baby last year. They didn't tell me about it. I'm confused by the double standard. My sister spent the first week of my daughter's life phoning everyone we knew, with whom she was still in good standing, demanding to know if they knew about the pregnancy. Of course, since we kept it secret, they all said they didn't know. This is the last I've heard from her, though I doubt she'll stay quiet. My sister, who I have yet to talk about, unblocked us from social media. I can only assume this is to try to glimpse pictures of our daughter. She also sent us a baby gift with no return address. I believe she did so we would be forced to open it before seeing who it is from. We have since donated her gift to charity, as we want nothing to do with her. My wife wants no reminders of her family around. I do not know if my Mil knows about my daughter. Her wife's grandmother asked people not to tell her about it, as it might disturb her mental health. Update 2. Hi everybody, it's been a while. Check my post history, as some of the story details are on our Just Know family. I have a lot to update you on. I guess we will start with me. I have been in the care of both a counselor and a psychiatrist. I seem to be on a good balance of medications for my depression and anxiety. I have been feeling a lot better lately. Thanks to my psychiatrist, I was approved for disability, so I have some income now. Because of this, we decided that my wife should return to work and I would watch our daughter. I have been a stay-at-home dad since September. It's been going well. My daughter is now older than my son was when he died. We continue to have zero contact with my mother-in-law and my wife's entire immediate family. My wife's aunt has been very supportive, though. I've become a lot more insightful about the toxic nature of my wife's relationship thanks to all of you. My wife went to grief counseling for our son, but she just started counseling today to deal with her family issues. She came home pretty happy, which is encouraging to see. Now we get into the real drama. My sister. My sister definitely has NPD. Coming to terms with that has helped me immensely. I realize now that my sister is incapable of loving me the way I deserve. She is still with the drug dealer, and they are now engaged. My eldest nephew is almost 16. He has a full-time job and is on the basketball team. He uses these as excuses to never be home. Some recent issues have come to light. They have been physically and verbally abusing my 13-year-old niece. They have kicked her and slapped her. They have bound and gagged her with duct tape. They call her SLOT and CNT on a regular basis. Their reasoning for this is because she socializes primarily with boys. What they fail to understand is that she socializes with boys because she is as immature as they are. She does not like to gossip with girls her age. She prefers to play soccer and tag with the boys. My niece met a Lebanese boy through a church meetup. They hit it off and became friends. My sister found a picture of them together on social media and lost her SHT. She went on a racist tirade and told my niece that Muslims would love to get a hold of a little blonde girl and take her back to Lebanon. I found this very confusing because they met at a church meetup and we did not grow up in a racist household. My niece believes that the drug dealer is responsible for bringing racism into their household. I also find this confusing because he is biracial German-Japanese. They forbid my niece from seeing this boy simply because he is brown. However, one day they bumped into him at the mall. The drug dealer grabbed the boy, held a knife to him, and threatened him to stay away from my niece. The drug dealer was later arrested for this. He was released pending trial. He blamed my niece for the whole thing, and they began attacking her at home. It ended with my sister saying, "I wish you would kill yourself." My niece then went to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and cut open her own wrist. My niece's friends at school reported it to Children's Aid. An investigation began. My sister told my niece that if she lost either of her sons over this, she would disown and stop loving my niece. Due to the drug dealer's charges and Children's Aid's investigation, my sister, who had not been speaking to my parents, called them in a panic. On a long shot, my mom suggested she send my niece down south to stay with them. They are snowbirds. My sister was desperate and agreed. My niece is currently safe and happy with my parents. My parents and I are in agreement that they must keep her at all costs. She cannot go back to that abusive home. I will let you know if they get legal custody of her, as the battle is only just beginning. We get little nuggets of information from my niece. They pop out as she remembers things again. She is naive or immature. She says the drug dealer gets high, and when he is high, he is paranoid. He gets a machete out and sits with it. He often forgets it and leaves it laying on the couch for the toddler to find. I had to ask my niece something I already knew the answer to in my heart, but I needed to hear it. She told me she and her older brother did not come to my son's celebration of life because my sister kept it from them. My niece and nephew still love me, but their mom has kept them from me. I knew deep down that was what was happening, but it still hurts so much to know that I was being deprived of love and comfort from them at a time in my life when I needed it most. I will update when I learn more. Second story. My husband of 7 years cheated on me with his sister's friend, then sawed me in a fit of rage and confessed his cheating, now begging me to reconcile. My husband, 39, and I, 35, have been married for 5 years and dated 2 years prior. We have never had trust issues or infidelity. We have had a great marriage and a great relationship, and we were really great friends. We have so much in common. We can sit and talk for hours. I was his best friend, and we even hung out during guys' nights, watching football with his friends. We had a great relationship. The cheating happened when he went home to New York for Thanksgiving, 3 days early. I arrived the day before Thanksgiving. This woman was visiting with his younger sister. They are in graduate school together, and they are really close friends. This woman couldn't make it home to California, so my in-laws hosted her too. It turns out they all went out for drinks. My sister-in-law left my husband and this woman alone at a friend's gathering. They're all drinking and having a good time. My husband told me they were alone, talking all night. Then, when they returned home to his parents, they drank more. They were up until 2 a.m., and they ended up having sex. My husband didn't make excuses, saying it was the beer. He said he was definitely wrong. He admitted that he was flattered that she was flirting with him. He admitted that she was extremely attractive. He even left her alone to go to bed when he felt himself attracted to her. She came to him, and they were in his bedroom. They drank and talked more on the balcony, and they ended up kissing as well. They had sex. He told her he was going to tell me. He told his sister the next morning, and his sister told her she needed to leave. So when I arrived, my husband was acting really off. He was feeling guilty as hell. He's trying to hold his SHT together and not ruin his family's Thanksgiving. On Thanksgiving night, I asked him what the hell was going on with him. He was all over me sexually. He wanted lots of sex, and he was very aggressive during sex. I told him I needed a break, and he wouldn't stop. He finished inside me, which he doesn't do. I don't want to get pregnant. I thought, this was so out of character for my husband. I asked him, what the hell is going on with him? He started crying, and he started apologizing. I thought it had to do with money. Never in a million years did I think he cheated on me. He confessed everything. I listened to my husband. I let him speak. I was upset. I felt sick, and I cried. But I didn't get angry. I wasn't disrespectful in my in-laws' home. I had my sister-in-law drive me into the city, and I stayed at my friend's apartment. While they were away, my sister-in-law told me about this woman, and she apologized profusely. I saw a photo of the woman. She is 27, and she is absolutely beautiful. Not saying it makes anything okay, but wow, she is the kind of woman men would absolutely fight over. I told my husband he needed to leave when he returned home. He moved out that Sunday night. He has been driving me crazy. begging me to forgive him. He has been showing up at my work. He shows up at the house. I cannot make him leave because he owns the home too. I told him I think I may consider a divorce. I can't forgive this. I always felt I could work it out if our marriage went through something like this. But I can't. My parents divorced over infidelity. My dad was a serial cheater. My husband has taken steps to fix himself. He is getting help. He is just going crazy because I have just been numb and in shock. And I think it comes off as if I don't care. I do care, and I do love him. But I cannot be in a mediocre marriage. I don't want our daughter 3 to see her mom except being cheated on. I am overwhelmed. I am overthinking everything. I don't want to make the wrong decision. I have been told I should keep our family together. He came clean, and he's a good man. It happens once. I know that is a good point. But I feel off. Is it a shock? Or did I lose respect and fall out of love? I don't know. Has anyone else felt this gray cloud after? Will it pass? And should I just wait a while longer before I make a choice that will turn my life and my daughter's lives upside down? Thanks in advance. Relevant comments. For the love of Milangel. I'm curious how his sister is handling this information right now. Is she still friends with or in contact with that person? OP replied. My sister-in-law has cut all ties with this woman. She has called me and sent a text apologizing, and she is taking this hard. She feels she is to blame. I have made it clear that she is not to blame. She is in shock. She cannot believe her friend's behavior. She thought she was a good person, but now she is questioning everything about this woman. Glittering rock. So after he cheated on you, he sawed you. And finished inside knowing you don't want to get pregnant. He wanted you to get pregnant again because it would be harder to leave then. I'm so sorry, but this is not a man to stay with. OP replied. I just had this argument. I said the word saw, describing what I felt my husband did to me. My friend said she felt I should report it. Her husband said, good luck proving it. He said I would be laughed out of the room at the police station. Update. Thank you all for the words of encouragement. I have been sitting with this. I have gotten tested for an STD, and I am all good. I have been trapped in New York with my soon-to-be ex-husband. We agreed to spend Christmas with our daughter, and we ended up getting stuck here due to the storm. I told my husband I wanted a divorce, which made him lose his SHT. He was stalking me, and he was acting out of character. I asked him to please just leave me alone. He was scaring me. He was upsetting our daughter, who sensed there was a problem. She is used to a fun and cozy home. Now there's tension. She cried when she told me to give Daddy a kiss and hug, and I refused. It is breaking my heart. I know it is hurting him. He has been a mess. I don't feel sorry for him. I feel for our daughter. She is sad to see her dad sad, and he keeps telling her, I'm sorry. But he can't tell her why. Why does he have to leave at night? And why don't we eat as a family? It's been insane, to say the least. I thought it would be good for her if we were a family for Christmas. Well, it's been 3 days without flights or driving until at least the 30th. I don't have $2,000 a day for Hertz to rent a car. So we have an extended stay, and I stay in the bedroom with my daughter, and he stays on the roll-out sofa. I have been dealing with him, asking me why we can't get help for our marriage. I have cried. I overheard him crying to his dad and mom at 2 a.m., saying he wanted to kill himself for his mistake. I received a call from them the next morning, asking if I could ever forgive him. If I couldn't, they said they understood. I admit that the thoughts of self-harm are concerning. I don't think he is doing it just to get me back. He is definitely spiraling. I was gentle with him last night. I agreed to talk. Not for reconciliation. I just let him express his feelings and get SHT off his chest. Which led to me waking up at 4 a.m. this morning with him lying next to me in bed, wide awake, staring at me. He said he needed to figure out what he needed to do for me not to leave him. He refuses to live without me. Maybe we have cabin fever. I am starting to feel uneasy. People are insane. I am not trying to die because he can't live without me. He already feels depressed, and I think losing his daughter will really take him over the top. Is it normal for the cheater to go down this path when the reality of their cheating has caused them to lose? My husband is a smart man. He is usually controlled. Not someone who is mentally unbalanced. I think the loss of his family may have really pushed him over the edge. Before all this, we were a happy family. Why he was so weak, I don't know. If it is just him being uninterested in me, then I can just step away and make sure he has more time with his daughter. They are extremely close. Hurting her has really destroyed him. His life was being a great dad for her. I thought he loved me. I don't know about that now, but I assume losing his family has mentally affected him. I have sent a text to my best friend of 20 years, keeping her updated. She says this is normal, but I also feel she may be a bit biased because her husband is my husband's best friend. We have all been friends for a while, our kids are close, and it's a breakup for them as well. I guess I'm looking for signs of someone losing it and doing something extreme. I have just been kind and respectful until I am able to leave. He has been love bombing me and expecting a response. He sent the song, I'll Be Over You. Toto said, I'm dying here. Please don't leave me. Maybe I am losing my SHT. I am in such a difficult situation right now. Any advice? Is this normal behavior from the cheater? Relevant comments. Aspralif. What do his family or Sil say or feel about this situation? Is Sil going to stay friends with this disgusting woman? Look at your husband's phone and see if her number is there. What were her plans? Is it just a one-night stand? She had to know she was destroying a family. I would want to know if they've talked since, and if not, do their stories line up? I'm so sorry you are going through this. I read your original post, and it affected me for days. Now I just can't believe you and your daughter have to endure this. I just have so many questions, and I'm sure you do too. I wish you and your daughter much healing. OP replied. His family is pissed. They are repulsed by him. They were hard on him. But he has softened their hearts because he is saying he doesn't want to go on. His sister has cut ties with her friend. This woman has tried to get my number from my Sil. She is claiming she was drunk. She is so sorry. Now, she was drunk, and apparently she is a promiscuous woman when she drinks. My Sil says she is the friend that you end up babysitting at the bar because she doesn't know when to stop drinking and becomes ridiculous. I have not looked at his phone. I am not making excuses, but I doubt he has had contact with her. At this point, I am so done. They can have each other if she is on his phone, and if they are talking, then maybe she can find him a place to stay. He has left the family home, and I will not lose my home in the divorce. My daughter has been hurt enough, and she's not leaving her friends and school. I do have a million questions, but I have not gotten to the point of grilling him. I just feel better staying away from him. OP updates in the comments. Update. Thank you all for all of the support. I am now home. My daughter is with my parents for a few days. I thought this would be better until my husband and I sorted everything out. I am happy I made this choice because SHT hit the fan. My husband is not okay. He comes into the bedroom to pack clothes. He needs more suits for work. He says to me, point blank, he cannot live without me. He said he was so sorry that he would move heaven and earth to repair our marriage. He said he refused to let me go. He will not lose me without a fight. He summed it up by saying, I don't lose. I'm sorry IFW broke your heart and tore our family apart. But I can't imagine life without you. If I saw you with another man, I don't know what I would do. I fantasize about it. It's driving me crazy. Those are his words. He has really changed. His eyes are dark, but they seem empty. He knows this isn't going to end well for him. I never knew my husband to be a violent man. He did have a temper in college, but I don't think he would intentionally go as far as hurting me. I mentioned this to someone, and they said he may accidentally hurt you. In a fit of rage. My husband works a lot. He is an M and a lawyer, so he has a lot of work to catch up on. I know this will keep him occupied. I am praying that will keep him away. I plan on filing for divorce this week. I do not want him to know. He left the house, and he said he would give me space. He apologized for hurting me. Then he had the audacity to let him make love to me. His words, I said, I don't have love anymore. He lost it. He says, so you don't love me anymore. He began pacing the floor. He started crying and saying, I made a effing mistake. I need you to forgive me. I need you to talk to me. I asked him to please leave me alone. I told him I was not feeling well. I needed food. I made the excuse of needing to go buy groceries, so I made my escape by leaving for the grocery store. As I went to my car, he was right behind me. He blocked me in the garage, and he wouldn't let me go. He had me trapped between him and the car, with his arms around me. He wasn't hurting me, but he is 6'3" and I'm 5'5". I think this could all go away very quickly. I have to be careful with my words because he is on the edge. If I say I will call the cops, I have a feeling he will lose his SHT. We are gun owners, and that worries me. I pray his demanding job will keep him occupied, and maybe he will cool down. All the work will distract his mind. We broke up back in November. He has only gotten worse since seeing him over Christmas. I just hope filing for divorce will not trigger him. Maybe I should wait. Update. Thank you for being so concerned for me. I have spoken with the police, and they know what is happening. I have decided to file, but to hold off serving him. He is going to IC, and he is currently slammed with work, which is excellent. He has been stopping to see our daughter, tucking her in after her bath. He doesn't even have time for dinner. He is very busy, and I think his work is clearing his mind. He loves his job, and I am praying he will come to his senses. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.